it really helpful thinking about the Beatitudes as Jesus taking what is considered normal and good in the world and flipping it on its head, proclaiming that his kingdom is completely different. The Beatitudes aren't fortune cookie sayings or self-help guides so we can live our best life. They teach us how we can proclaim his kingdom, how we walk out the gospel and be light in a completely dark world. Mercy is not natural. When a careless driver cuts us off, scares us, puts us in danger, we want punishment. I've followed a driver home like that before, imagining that a police car was following us and saw the whole thing and pulled him over so that he could be punished. When someone harms someone in my family or speaks badly of them or is intentionally unkind, I see red and I imagine causing that person harm. The other day, Isaac came up to me while I was cleaning the kitchen and he asked if we could talk. And he said, "Mom, I think there needs to be a new rule in this family. When one of our brothers or sister is mean and horrible or unkind, the person who was upset, they should get to choose what kind of punishment they deserve." Apparently, Jake and I weren't strict enough. He needed to really punish them. And I gently explained why this wouldn't work. We are not naturally full of mercy. God is full of mercy. It's at the heart of his character. Every way he moves towards us, mercy is a part of it. When Adam and Eve sinned and they were punished, God moved in mercy as he made clothes for them. Clothes from the skin of an animal. Sin bringing death, and sin also bringing this act of mercy. He clothed them tenderly, intimately, and mercifully. He doesn't give his people what they deserve. He is always merciful to them. Abraham, he lies about Sarah being his wife. Isaac does the same. Both of them fail their sons and they don't lead their families well in difficulty. Jacob, who I think is the worst of all the patriarchs, has 2 wives and a favourite. He also has concubines. He has 12 sons and also a favourite. He doesn't defend his daughter when she's kidnapped and raped. And then when Joseph is sold into slavery, he behaves like they've all died. He doesn't lead his sons and care for them well. And yet God moves in great mercy to these men and their families. He leads them to good land. He keeps them safe. He increases their wealth. His presence is with them. He speaks to them. And that's just the first book of the Bible. All through the Old Testament, we read stories of our compassionate God acting with great mercy. Mercy is the compassionate treatment of those in distress, especially when it is within one's power to harm or to punish. Biblical mercy goes further, and it is the forgiving of sin and the withholding of deserved punishment. And there are 2 stories from the Gospels that really stick out to me that display this kind of mercy. Jesus acts with mercy toward the woman caught in adultery, who then became the woman caught in between Jesus and a group of Pharisees who were trying to catch him out. Jesus acts with mercy. He stands there as the man without sin who could throw the first stone. He could do it. He challenged the whole group. Whichever of you has no sin, throw the stone. That was him. And he showed her mercy and forgave her sin and told her to go and sin no more. The other, and I think even better example, is the parable of the unmerciful servant. I think it would be a really good idea to read it together, and Andrew has cleverly put up the reference on the screen. So go ahead and press pause and read. Jesus wants us to see the right response to the mercy that God has poured out upon us. We, each one of us, are the servant with the debt we cannot repay, and God in his great mercy has forgiven us. As I read the Gospels, I'm always struck by the Pharisees. And it seems to me that one of the things they want is this book of rules they can follow to guarantee their salvation. They want to have this rule book so they don't have to engage their heart. They aren't willing to admit their lack, that they're poor in spirit, that they cannot save themselves. They're self-righteous and they want to earn or to buy or to demand status in God's kingdom. And twice in Matthew, Jesus rebukes the Pharisees and quotes from Hosea, saying, "I desire mercy, not sacrifice." In the Old Testament, God's people who were sinners followed the sacrificial law and would sacrifice animals to atone for their sin. And the problem was it didn't work. Their sin was too great. They could never repay a debt so big, and neither can we. We cannot mend the people we hurt. We cannot take back unkind or harmful words, our impatience. We cannot work to ensure that things are perfect. We cannot save ourselves, our family, our community, our world. There's nothing we can do alone. But Jesus says mercy, not sacrifice, is what he wants. He wants for us to receive the beautiful gift of God's mercy, and then to go on and give that gift to others. Romans 2 says that God's kindness leads to repentance, and his mercy is kind. His forgiveness, his compassion, his mercy leads us to repentance and to him. And so to Matthew 5, "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy." This is no formula. This is not a self-help guide on how to gain forgiveness. It is the life-changing reality of being in God's kingdom because of God's great mercy. Our hearts soften to become more like his, and we become a people of mercy. And I just want to stop and be really clear, mostly because of the culture that we live in, the culture that I grew up in as a good British girl. God's mercy and forgiveness is not sweeping sin under the rug. It's not ignoring or excusing sin. My home growing up was good at lots of things, but not this issue. And so most of the time you did something wrong and everybody just ignored it. And then a couple of hours later, we just pretended it never happened. It wasn't a good idea. But that's not what God does. Jesus chose to leave the glory of heaven to come and die and to take the punishment that we deserved. One of the reasons that Christ died such a painful, suffering-filled death was because he really was paying the price, the just right price for sin. It was a death that caused physical, emotional, and spiritual suffering. Crucifixion was intended to dehumanize a person, to rob them of every ounce of dignity. And I make this point to be clear that God does not ignore sin. I really believe that whatever we teach and proclaim has to be true for everyone, for you and me, and for the people around the world who are victims of atrocious crimes, for widows in Rwanda and orphans in Ukraine, for people all around the world. The reason that we can proclaim that God's kingdom is one of mercy and that we should be people of mercy is because of the price Christ paid. The Latin, if you're nerdy like me, for mercy, literally translates price paid. And we can be sure of this as we show mercy. You know, when people harm us, it's one of two things is happening. Either Christ has died for their sin and completely paid the price, or they will stand before a just God and pay the price. God does not ignore sin. You and I, our price is paid. And so how can we not forgive? How can we not then act compassionately towards people in distress? How can we not be that people of mercy? Mercy is not something we do and tick off. It is a change in our heart, an acceptance of the great mercy God has shown us, and then offering that mercy to others. As you continue to talk and pray together, I want to leave you with the words of this hymn. Jesus paid it all to him I owe. My sin had left a crimson stain, he washed it white as snow.